And off we go. All right, gentlemen. Welcome to this very special episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. It is a remote version for the first time ever after 88 episodes. We are now getting into this remote version using Zoom, and it's kind of working. For the time being, we're going to be doing this, and then very soon we're going to have the guys come back inside of the actual office where you've been hearing parables from the pit from mainly the majority of graduates of Warrior Week and guys that have been inside of experiences with us. With us today is Dr. David Feder, Warrior Week 59. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Hey, Coach. How are you?
All right, doing well. Okay, man. So let's roll back and let's talk about when you actually came to Warrior Week. What brought you to Warrior Week, and like where were you in life when you actually considered to actually give this experience a try, man?
So I didn't know anything about Warrior or Warrior Week or anything at all. I wasn't on Facebook. I was only on Instagram, and at the rock bottom of my life, I asked God to help me out. And he sent me an Instagram video. It was for King's Kid, actually. So, I was in the full story is I was in a hotel room in Pocatello, Idaho, in the middle of nowhere, doing some PRN work, and prayed to God for the first time in 10 years. And I said, I'll do anything you want if you help me save my marriage. Just help me. I'll do anything you want. And he didn't say anything. But then about a week later, I saw the first King's Kid video. And something in that video just touched me. So I thought, for $100, really, if they're trying to sell me something, okay, fine. And had no idea what Warrior was. Never heard of Warrior Week. Didn't know who you were. Didn't see you till the first video, the garage video. We had a VR goggles on. I'm like, who is this guy yelling? And I was like, all right, I can do this. And went through King's Kit. And then after King's Kit, joined the general Warrior Book of Brotherhood. And then you and I ended up getting on a call because August of 2018, I signed up. I did an online application for Warrior Wealth, and then never really went anywhere with it. And I had told myself I was going to do Warrior Week in 2020. That was when I finally saw what Warrior Week is. I'm going to do Warrior Week in 2020. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know why the fuck I thought that, but that was what I thought. And you texted me, and you said you were the first or second guy to apply for the Warrior Wealth thing. You and I need to get on a phone call. I was like, all right, well, I don't think I need Warrior Wealth. I'm like, money's not an issue right now, but whatever, I'll get on a phone call. So you and I got on a phone call. By the end of that phone call, I'd signed up for Warrior Wealth, and then I'd mentioned to you, I also like to do Warrior Week. And by the end of the call, I was signed up for Warrior Wealth and Warrior Week. And then I joined the Warrior Wealth experience. The small group experience was part of that with Coach Sean and Coach Garrett, and then ended up in October of 19 doing Warrior Week 59. So I had no intention of doing Warrior Week when I started. I just wanted to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. And
so you were in some pain. You were on your knees praying to God, and somewhere, somehow, there are many ways, but the one that you found to be one of the way was the King's Kid experience, right? So what was your first reaction as the minute you got into the first evolution of that? Hey, listen, man, there's no doubt that we do some shit differently here than anywhere else, right? And there's like yesterday I was on Instagram, and out of nowhere I get this ad, and it's this guy that literally has fucking copied everything about Warrior, right? So on one side, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm proud of the guy because he's actually going out there and he's helping and he's doing something. So part of me was proud, right? Okay. Our teaching is now becoming replicated, and it's great. But the minute he opened his fucking mouth, I recognized that, man, he's just pretending. It's not being him. He's not showing any fucking way. He's copying a way to profit from this way and perhaps create significance for himself. Literally everything is copied from A to Z, from the t-shirts to the way we speak, to the words that are spoken, to the way that like the natural way that you experience here in Warrior. Imagine somebody replicating that. Imagine what you experience here at Warrior every single day, and we'll talk about that right now for the audience. But imagine if that is replicated on the outside, how would that feel to you? It just doesn't doesn't feel real.
No.
So anyway, coming back to what I was telling you, is like you came in, the first experience you had, and again, we do things very differently here. Although on the surface, many things can be replicated. There's one thing that cannot be replicated, and you've kind of experienced that in the first experience ever virtual experience at that point, which was the garage. Yeah. Talk to me about what is it that you've experienced in that first interaction that up to now, many years after, that you can't see anyone fucking replicating that, man.
So it was the first time when you spoke and just started talking about the garage and all the shit in your garage and the junk, and you weren't acting. So it wasn't, oh, he's trying to tell me something, or no, this guy really wants me to speak my pain and tell the truth. And then you said, go online, 2-minute video, tell the truth about your garage. And that was the first time that I was given permission to tell the truth. Like, it didn't fucking matter that I was speaking it into a Facebook or a workplace group that I didn't know any of these guys. Didn't matter. Your authenticity and certainty, and the fact that you're a pretty powerful guy. Didn't know you from Adam, but just watching that video, I'm like, he's telling the truth, and he's a powerful guy, and he's willing to be open and honest. Well, what the fuck do I have to lose? So it was that idea of you can tell the truth about where you are, about things you've done, about the pain you feel, about the fact that you're a fucking mess, because we all are. It's just that I'm more of a mess than some, and that gave me permission. And I remember I spoke out loud on that video what the fuck was going on in my garage, and it was freeing. And people can copy your copy, they can copy your marketing, they can copy the t-shirts, they can't copy this. They just can't. I mean, you can know immediately if someone's lying, because if they don't tell their story of their pit and their pain and their lies and their sedation, then why the fuck should I? And immediately
the key thing is there's two things happening right now in the marketplace. One is people are being vulnerable for profit. So they actually share some stuff, but is linked to profit. They're doing it so they can weave you in. And you can tell immediately when a guy gets like that, like literally fucking like, oh, fuck you, man. Right? Like, it doesn't take a fucking genius. You can feel that inside of you, and you already know. And then obviously there's the other side where they're constantly talking about their achievement, who they were in the past, what they've taken place, and positioning credibility, right? The reality is this. The reality, in truth, there's no need for fucking credibility. You don't need to defend any position inside of the truth. You cannot, your mouth cannot be stronger than what the truth is. The minute you feel somebody's mouth running stronger and louder on what the truth is, it is at that time that this guy is full of shit. Now notice I fucking raised my voice. I raised my voice because the truth has a tonality. The truth doesn't fucking pretend to be. It doesn't need you to fucking protect it or defend it. You can stand next to it and borrow from its power. But the minute you see somebody trying to defend a position, trying to project a position, that person is not in truth. That person is in confusion. Maybe that person wants the truth. Maybe that person doesn't need how to get the truth, and that's his first attempt at getting in there. But the problem becomes the blind leading the blind. And so you've experienced this feeling that told you, okay, I'll do the next thing because it just feels that is the right thing. It seems that this is the right path. It sounds like this is what I need to be. It looks like this is where I must take the next step. Talk to me about these feelings that you've generated. It sounds like, it seems like, it looks like. What did that look like for you, man?
So taking it back to Kinkskid, or just in general, is very early on, I realized that you were doing this because you're supposed to. You weren't trying to sell me anything. So you got my $100, and I never had an upsell beyond that in terms of, okay, I'm waiting, next evolution, next evolution, next evolution. The only upsell was at the very end, was like, would you like to join the Brotherhood? And it's like, well, fuck yeah, I'd like to join the Brotherhood. But that whole time, it seems like you're being legit. Like you're doing this because you actually want to help men get out of their pit. And it seemed that from the very beginning, and it has yet to be disproven. Like it sounded like you were being authentic, seemed like you were being authentic, and what you actually wanted was me to be authentic, and not to make you feel good, or not to make you more money, or not to increase your legitimacy or your certainty, because you give a fuck and you give a shit about where men are and getting them out of the pit. And it seemed like, sounded like, and it felt like that was the truth, and it was. So you wanted me to tell the truth for me, not for you. You didn't even know who I was because there were so many men in King's Kit. I know you guys weren't watching every single video. That'd be impossible. So it was kind of like, no, do this shit or don't, but realize it's for you. So it just sounded, seemed, and felt like certainty and truth. And I'd never felt that before because I had been lying about my self-worth. I mean, you and I have gone back and forth on this many times. I didn't feel worthy, even though I had all these accomplishments. They didn't fucking matter. I had the story in my head that I wasn't fucking worth anything. And you were one of the first people to say, well, you can tell yourself that. How about you explore why you feel that way? And then ask yourself, is it true? I had never questioned anything about my stories ever. I didn't even think they were questionable. I didn't think the stories I had in my head could be wrong.
We get caught up in in a river and a stream that leads us to where we're supposed to apparently go, never questioning the quality of the water, never questioning, is it cold, is it hot, do I even like to be in this water, never questioning, can I rest, can I rest on the side of the river and just enjoy this nature. Why am I swimming against the current most of the time? What am I trying to go back to? Why do I not trust the process where it's leading? Who's put me in this fucking river to begin with? Where's this river leading me? Why am I scared of the waterfalls that may be ahead? Is it going to go to the ocean? Is it going to go to the lake? Who am I going to meet in this journey? These questions, and this is a metaphor, the river is a metaphor. These questions are places that we don't often go, and what replaces it's the time that we spend on thinking what we should do, what we should achieve, and how we should survive. So talk to me about, obviously you're a doctor and you've dedicated your life to this profession as a healer, as someone that is dedicated to serve and help other humans, because humans break down. They break down emotionally, they break down spiritually, and they break down physically. And so you master the art and science of healing humans physically, which, by the way, is linked to psychology way beyond how people actually think about it. Our biology is directly, and I let you talk about this because you're the expert on it, but there's an intersection of our biology and our psychology that collaborate. So talk to me about this version of the truth that showed up for you in the pursuit of becoming a professional, a doctor, a healer.
So you talk about the river, and it's a great metaphor because I'd always wanted to be a doctor. I never really knew why, and I never really questioned it. Nobody in my family is. I don't come from a medical background, and I wasn't pushed to do this. It's just something that was on my heart. But I never asked myself why. And when I was in my pit where I had cheated on my wife, I had been lying, I had torn down everything that I had ever built or wanted to build. The year that I did that, I made the most money as a physician because I threw my entire life into my work. And then when I sat in the Warrior Wealth Intensive 1 in the back of the room, I said out loud to a couple of the guys in our small group, I don't even know if I want to be a doctor anymore. So I was so broken in terms of, do I even want to be on this river, that I was ready to give up everything. And just, I don't even want to be a doctor anymore. And then you and Coach Garrett helped me say, okay, well, that's fine if that's really what you want, but are you just floating along and be just saying fuck it to everything because you're upset? So it took me a long time, and Warrior Week was where I finally got the certainty of, no, I'm a fucking healer. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Just because I'm on this path doesn't mean that I defaulted into it. And that's something that I had to learn myself, was that, no, I'm a fucking healer. And I needed to heal myself, but not physically. It was mentally, I was fucked. And it was causing all kinds of issues for my certainty in things that I should never have questioned. So like, I had been lying to myself about my self-worth for so long that I was saying that I'm a doctor, therefore it makes me special. Not, I had to do a lot of shit to get to be a doctor. I had it backwards. I was like, well, I'm a doctor. That determines my self worth. And until I realized, it's like, no, motherfucker, you had to do all the med school, residency, fellowship, sleepless nights, studying. You had to pass the boards. You had to, like, people say you're elite for a reason, not because you're elite. You don't, like, they don't go, you're a great doctor because you're a great doctor. Well, no, I had a fucking pathway to get there. And I had to realize that that was the pathway for me. And just because I was broken in other areas doesn't mean that the one area that I was strongest in is a lie, or that I should put all of my eggs in that basket either. So my brain was so fucked up that I thought that my worth was determined by what I was doing, not how I got there. It was
And
fucking, I was a mess.
and we see that often in a lot of our brothers that come. I've seen it with my own eyes in brothers that were part of the military, brothers that are surgeons and doctors, and if and a few more. That these brothers have such a, and even some of our guys that came in as lawyers, they have this such a high level of authority and integrity when it comes to, take an example of the surgeon in the surgery room. He's the highest authority. You can't fuck with his integrity inside of the surgery room. And this man walks in for 16 hours inside of the surgery room at the highest level of integrity and operates that way. Comes out and works or operates at a level much lower elsewhere, in his body, in his relationship with God, at home. And all he wants is to have access to the same level of power and integrity that he exercises in that line of profession. Doctors, surgeon, military. Think about military guys, man. The highest level of integrity in the battlefield. And once they come home, it's like they're told to operate by some different laws, the civilian laws, instead of embracing the power that they have and the integrity that they have as their number one fucking power, and utilizing that aggressivity that they have in war, in business, and in other areas to fucking lead. No, we don't do that.
No.
We give them some fucking meds, and we tell them to stay in the fucking basement because we don't know what the fuck to say to them, because we're not fucking qualified to say shit to them. They are the one that took the decision, and they've led leaders. Now you're going to tell a leader not to lead anymore because it's a different environment. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Same thing for doctors, surgeons, and other people. And in your experience, like, that got revealed to you the first night. So talk to us about the first night of Warrior Week.
Sure.
The pit. What did you find out, man? Where did you go? What did you have to see? What did you have to face?
So I was before the night when I was sitting in the graveyard for 3 or 4 hours, and you came over and said, "What are you here for?" And I looked at you and I was like, "I'm here to talk to God." Because I had been so beaten and broken down that I realized that I'm here to talk to God because I need to talk to the source of everything. And the night in the pit, I realized that I was looking at myself as the evolution of the dark and light warrior. I was looking at the thing that came to my mind was the only thing worse than chaining up your dark warrior and ignoring him, because he's in a cage, you're not feeding him, he's starving, but you're aware that he's there. My light warrior was ignored. Like, he was wandering around, completely ignored. It's almost like he was a ghost screaming at me to just, like, fucking move already, but I'm ignoring him. So one thing I'm caged and scared of, the other thing I'm fucking ignoring. And then I wonder why my life is broken. Like, broken. I'm ignoring both sides of me, thinking that I'm not worthy of either of them. And the night in the pit was the night that my lack of self-worth finally fucking died. And that's the thing. The pit is my lack of self-worth. The amount of times people said to me, "Why do you question your self-worth? You're a fucking doctor. Like, you've done all these things. You act like you're like this homeless guy in a trailer park. Like, that's how you behave." And in that night in the pit, that guy finally fucking died. He died. God finally dick kicked me.
Self-worth for you. How did you even explore that idea? Did you search for that in books? Did you, like, what was your quest around self-worth prior to Warrior?
Prior to Warrior, I didn't do anything. I had a false. I did the whole defining myself by what I did. So I'm an ICU physician. So I walk in pits all the time, death and destruction between patients and families. And I just told myself that that was it. Like that, it was that integrity and like, yeah, I'm a dog. I got it all together. I would never get mad. I always be happy, panda, smiley guy, and tell myself, I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. In the end, and nope, never can be upset. Never can be angry. Just going to be constantly like this all the time. So I lied to myself to the point where I was like, no, everything's fine.
Now, David, looking back right now,
yeah.
If you like look back at yourself, what did you compromise, man?
Everything. I compromised everything. I compromised who I really was, what I really wanted. The only thing in my life that I didn't compromise is I like being a physician. I was supposed to do that. It was like that was the only part of me that was real. I compromised truth with my wife. I compromised intimacy with my wife. I compromised my body. I compromised the connection with God. I was like, fuck him. You know, I looked at him as a genie. You're supposed to give me what I want. If not, fuck you. You don't exist. Or you exist, but as long as I do good things, I'll be fine. Like it was that kind of thing. So I compromised everything but being a physician. And the funny thing is I'm a better physician now than I've ever been because of the way I show up.
What pain did that compromise translated into that you had to face, at least in this experience, in the first night in the pit?
Anger. I had a lot of suppressed anger and rage at myself for all the things that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And that first night in the pit, I was very angry at myself. Riding home on the bus on the end of that, I was just, most of what I wrote was just angry letters to myself.
But also it's okay to be angry at others, right? Because most of life, you're not allowed to be angry at others. You're supposed to be this responsible guy and, leaders, don't blame anyone. And so inside of that nice concept, you bury the feelings associated with actually being angry with things and processing the anger that creates these stories. The sedated anger that you had inside of you, what stories did I build for you, man?
So I was not allowing myself to be angry at my mom. I had a lot of rage and pain toward my mother and the way that she acted toward me and the way that she treated me. And I just looked at it as that's just the way things are. I'm her son. I'm not supposed to ever get angry or have conflict or confrontation or collision with my mother for years and years and years. And I was angry at myself in the pit for being that stupid to think that I'm not allowed to be angry at my mom. So that night opened up the floodgates of a lot of stacks toward mom and enmeshment with my mother. There's a concept of mother-son enmeshment that I went into and ended up going to therapy for that and doing 300 or 400 stacks on my mom, just my mother, or myself in relation to my mother once I started stacking me. So once I was allowed to be angry at myself, the anger at other people came out quite easily. Because the way I looked at it, I was so suffocating how I felt about me that everything else was fake. And once I allowed myself to feel anger, rage, pain, joy, whatever at myself, I could then be honest with other people. And
this permission of colliding with what you don't want, aka going against compromising, that comes with risk, that comes with annoyance, that comes with confusion, that comes with conflict management, but also it comes with violence. And what I mean by violence is violence in sense of whenever there is violence exercised is because there is something that is wanted. You don't see violence appearing if there's nothing wanted. Even in the most obscure ways of seeing someone being violent, you're like, what the fuck? They want something, right? If they don't want something, there's no violence. So this idea of colliding for the truth, colliding and not compromising with violence in sense of committed to get what you want. How is that different for you today, right? Because obviously that didn't exist. It was all compromise. There was no risk.
I was
confused.
You
weren't even annoyed with yourself, man.
No. I was just sitting there. Well, I did some bad things. That was about as far as I got. I was ambivalent about everything. So now I have, I don't want to say I have no problem with collision because I don't, but I have no problem saying what I want and going after what I want to a level that I never thought possible. It's if I met the version of me that was sitting in the pit, I'd punch him right in the fucking head. I wouldn't even tell him anything. I'd just be like, you know why I'm hitting you. Fuck off. I mean, it was such an awakening of it's okay for me to say, I want this. One, because I know what I want, finally. Two, that what I want isn't bad and that I don't need to get it by making sure everyone around me is happy. So that's the way I would play things. If I wanted something, I'd figure out a way for everyone else that it might affect in any way, reality or even in my head, to make them happy so I could feel okay having it. Whether that's sex with my wife, switching a shift with someone at work, changing jobs. Like I transitioned during Warrior Wealth into a 75% telemedicine model and 25% boots on the ground model for a bunch of reasons. But the reason I hadn't done it earlier was because of a story I had that my mother wanted me to be a bedside doctor. So unless I figured out a way to switch by making her happy, I couldn't do it. And when I finally was like, well, fuck it, I want to do this. What do I care? It's not going to kill her. It might make her upset. Well, fuck that. She's upset. She'll get over it. It's my job. It's my career.
It's crazy. The way you said it, it's like, okay, the story is whether it's real or whether these people get actually offended or affected by what you want, or they don't really give a fuck.
No, I thought they did. I would tell myself they would.
Yeah, in your mind, you create a story that, oh, if I do this, if I talk this way, or if I create this, then I will be seeing this. So therefore, I will not give myself the permission to create.
Exactly.
Now, here's what I want you to recognize, right? Everything that you shared with me here on this conversation is everything that's been inside of you, everything that you discovered inside. You didn't go on the outside. You didn't buy a book. You didn't read a program. You didn't, drink the warrior Kool-Aid and now it's running inside of your blood. No, it was simply a discovery of what's within, patterns of behaviors that did not work, that you did no longer want it to work because it was not giving you what you want. And ultimately it was having you play last, like literally becoming last. And last was what you were compromising. You becoming last made everybody else happy. And so you made a win-win deal with yourself, the worst fucking deal ever, which is I'll go last, but in exchange, everybody's happy.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And it's one that struck me. One of the things that you said way early on is you're not here to change. You don't have to fucking change. And it's absolutely true. Everything I need, I already was. I changed to suit other people. So what I need to do is go back to who I'm supposed to be. So like this idea of change comes, you have to change, you have to change, you have to change. No, you don't have to fucking change. You've already changed. You wear a mask, you tell stories, you make compromises, you fucking lie to yourself to make other people happy, even if you don't know. It'd be one thing if they come up to you and said, you have to do this or I'll be upset. 99% of the time, it's not that. It's stories you have about what they might say if you do this. So that all has to fucking go, because who you are, what you want, what you need, and what you desire is already there. I can't change. I cannot change. Every time I change, it gets worse for me. I have to go back to who I'm supposed to be. And that's what Warrior teaches.
Yeah, that's the evolution, right? We evolve. And inside of our evolution, there is going to be some revolution. We're not going to be in revolution mode every single fucking day.
No.
Because that by itself erases the definition of a revolution. What are you revolting against? And in order to have a revolution, you can't really be alone in a revolution. I know a lot of guys preach the revolution within. Doesn't mean shit. The definition of revolution requires a gang behind you, requires a gathering, requires a group. You revolt with the same people that think that this is the new way. Revolutions are rare, but they do happen. Some scientists like to link them to the concept of the quantum leap, right? Every 5 years is a quantum leap that happens inside of our life. Personally, I've experienced that myself. Every 5 years, there has been a quantum leap. Now, let's talk about this evolution and your revolution. What was your revolution? Like at one point, you felt this revolution.
The biggest revolution that I had, was it's okay for me to want things for me. It's a very simplistic thing, but For the first time, I'm going to be 44 next month. The first time in 42 years, let's say, I was actually able to say to myself, it's okay to go after what you want, and it doesn't matter if other people are upset. That's the number one revolution. It was a fight against myself that took a long time and a lot of stacks to get to the point where it's like, no, you know what you want. Great. That took a while. Now go get it. And it's okay that you want it, and it's okay to go get it. That was the biggest quantum leap for me, that I can now go, well, I want this. Is it really what I want? Great. How do I go get it? Great. Let's go get it. And not have any guilt or shame over any of that. That was life changing.
Let's talk about the second day in the mountains, right? At Warrior Week, or on the beach at Warrior Week.
Yep.
What was the transition of the pain that you've kind of revealed and that got healed? In its revelation, the pain gets healed, right? You're not really looking for a healing moment. Healing is a journey, is not an event. You don't get healed like this. That's a miracle. And we witness that every single fucking day. Yeah. But healing is a process, and healing is happening. So as long as you reveal what needs to be revealed. The problem with healing is that most of us hold within. Some don't know how to reveal. Some reveal, but they have an agenda. And that is really manipulation. It's not truly revealing. So they don't heal themselves. They may profit from healing, but they don't heal themselves. What happened on second day, man?
So second day I loved Warrior Week, but second day was my favorite day. I didn't really talk to God in the pit. He kind of talked at me and told me some things, but I had a back and forth conversation that day on the beach. And writing, I read what I wrote last week, because a lot of what I wrote is coming to pass now in terms of the things I was told. They didn't make sense to me at the time, but it was kind of, okay, I understand now. But the biggest thing for me was getting to ask God questions and kind of indicting him, being like, why this, why that, why this? And half of the answers I got was, you don't need to ask that question because you know that's not your question. You're asking that for someone else. Knock it off. The biggest thing that I got from that was a statement of, you've surrendered to the ocean. So you've walked into the ocean. Great. Why are you fighting the fucking waves? Just let me take it. Let me take you. Trust my process. You trust Warrior, trust the divine process, and just go. Just let go, and let the waves carry you. And I know that I was walking into the ocean going, okay, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to listen. But if it's things I don't like, I'm going to fight against them, versus just accept it. And then a lot of the things that I was told that day was, stop asking questions that your wife wants answers to in terms of your wife's healing. 2 or 3 answers I got were, I'm not answering that question because that's not your question to ask me and you don't want the answer. So stop asking me questions that you don't want the answers to because you feel you need to have the answers to save someone else. And that, one of the things that was like, God said, leave your wife to me. And that last month, I now understand what that means. And where my wife and I are now in a much, much better place than we've ever been, because I left her alone. I let her go on her journey, as opposed to trying to fight the waves for her. So it was kind of like, get the fuck out of your own way. Ask me questions you want answers to. Leave other people out of it, because I know, because I'm God, when you're asking a question you don't actually want the answer to, or it's not your answer. So that reframed me into changing the way I stack, into stacking stories about me. And that same day, I think, is when you said 100% of your stack should be about you. And that was the day I started stacking black belt because of that. Because I took it to mean, okay, I'm going to ask questions about myself, not about how I'm showing up for other people. It's like how I'm showing up for me. So that was by far the most powerful fucking evolution. I got what if Warrior Week ended that afternoon, I'd have gotten what I needed. Everything else beyond that was just icing on top of the cake.
As a result of that pivoting point, because you're not the only one, everybody experiences a pivoting point sometime in Warrior Week, right? The moment. And as a result of that, who have you become? What has that induced in your character today?
My certainty has gone through the roof. Certain of who I am, certain of what I'm supposed to do, and certain of, if I'm ever unclear, I have a way to get clear. Like those 3 things: certainty of who I am, certainty of what I'm supposed to do, and certainty of how I can get clear. So I'm not 100% certain all the time walking around, but if I,
What is the value of being certain? Uh, if you would have to somehow quantify or project or paint an image of the value of you being certain when you wake up and you deal with everything that the world presents in front of you. What is the value for that in you? And if you're a man listening to this right now, the whole point of the podcast of Warrior Week is not to teach you some shit, is to massage your mind from different areas. And sometimes you're going to get punched in the fucking brain. Other times it's just a different soft way of inviting you to consider an inquiry as well. Literally, the Warrior podcasts are ways for you to ask yourself questions. If you're a man listening to this, you're not listening to Warrior Week podcast to learn some shit. This is not an informative podcast. This is not also a chit-chat podcast. This is not to entertain you. This is not for you to know more about Warrior Week. Literally what this is, and I want you to consider this as you're listening to this, is an opportunity for you to ask yourself, what the fuck are you hearing? Like, what is it that you're hearing? And what is it that you needed to hear today that is guiding you towards an inquiry within, towards an action that you have been called to do for so long? Something that you already know as a reminder. What is this conversation? Either the words that are coming out of my fucking mouth or David's or the guest. What is this reminding of you? So, David, what is the value of this certainty inside of your life today, man?
certainty brings action. If you're not certain, you can't act, or you'll act and you'll act in a pussified kind of way. For me, if I'm certain, then I can act. If I'm not certain, then I can't act. So the amount of things I've been able to do in my life, actions I've been able to take because of my certainty, even if they end up being wrong, they'll always lead me to where I'm supposed to be. Because not every action you take is supposed to work out the way that you want it to. You're supposed to take the action. So certainty drives action. If you were, for me, I was fucking around for a long time with ideas and this and that, and just always finding excuses not to go, because I would make excuses up. The truth of the matter is I wasn't fucking certain of what I wanted or who I was. Take those two things away and replace them with certainty, and the will to act becomes easy. So you can do big shit, you can do small shit, you can do all kinds of shit that you wouldn't be able to do before because you're certain. Will you be right all the time? Fuck no. I'm wrong far more often than I'm right. But it always leads me to where I'm supposed to be. It's the idea of God, you want to go to D, God pushes you to B. You're like, why the fuck do I need to go to B? Fine. As long as you take the steps toward B, that's what he wanted. He wanted you to act toward B to get to D. And D isn't everywhere you're going to fucking end up. He's taking you to X. D's a fuck. That's not what you really need. That's what you think you want. But the ability to act requires certainty, and without it, because you have to know that you're probably going to get it wrong, and the doubt right there can stop you. Well, I might get it wrong. I don't fucking care. I'm certain that this is where I'm supposed to go. There's a topic about surgeons are often wrong, never in doubt. So the idea of I'm just going to cut it out, and it's a really good way to think about it. You might be wrong, but you're certain that what you're going to do will work. You might be wrong, and without certainty, I can't act. I can't. I have not been able to act without certainty. And if I feel myself slipping, I go to the stack, which is why I've stacked so much. Not to impress anybody, because it's survival for me.
Your patients, when they come to you, that's what they're looking for. At the end of the day, they already know if they have a cold, it's a virus, they can't do shit about it. And they can they just have to stay at home. They already know if, they have temperature and their throats hurt and it's okay, I'm probably going to need antibiotics if it doesn't go after 3 days. 90% of them, they already know what it is, unless if it's a matter of emergency or, they break their arms or some shit that requires intervention. But they come to you for reassurance. They come to you for certainty. They come to you for you not cheerleading them by say, hey, here's what's going to happen. And you'll be fine. It may not be easy, but you'll be fine. How much of your interaction has changed, the way you interact with the customer based of this fuel that you're now taking from your own certainty personally.
So in medicine, there's a certainty in not knowing. And a lot of docs try to fill the void of, well, I don't really know, but I'm not going to tell the patient I'm not sure. I'm going to make something up, or I'm going to be evasive. People can fucking tell. They can tell if you're not sure. They can tell if you're being evasive, and they can tell if you're making up a diagnosis. They would rather have a physician say, quite certainly, I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm certain we can figure this out, or I'm certain about the pathway we're going to take. That inspires more confidence because it's the truth that we don't always know. And to say, well, it's going to be this, you're going to be fine. It's going to be, in those cases, yeah, it's easy to say you're going to be fine, this and that, versus I don't really know what the fuck's going on, but I'm certain that we have a way to figure it out. But as of right now, I'm not going to lie to you and say, yeah, sure, it's this, because I don't know. But it's not, I don't know and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's, I don't know and here's what we're going to do. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm certain about the diagnostic pathway we're going to go down.
I don't know what it is, but I'm trained to figure it out. That's
exactly
why I'm seeing me.
And that is really hard for a lot of people to have that conversation, because they have this image in their head of, I always have to know everything. It's like, no, you don't. You just have to know what to do to find out. They're coming to you for help.
The dilemma of the healer, the dilemma of the healer that thinks now he's a savior.
Exactly.
And there are so many doctors out there, even listening to this right now, that act as saviors. They act as saviors. Act as they know everything. Act as if there is their responsibility to save. I mean, I'm sure that you've dealt with this the first time you have a dying patient, right? There's emotions that happens, and there's a turbulence that takes place. Any doctor will face that turbulence. Reframing that with positive attitude, it's a false lift.
Yep.
You have to allow the turbulence of those emotions to make you a great doctor, right?
Yep.
And that forges your character. What can you tell us about your experience, man, when you had to deal with that first times?
So I remember the first time, I think I was an intern, the first time I saw a patient die when I was a doctor. So this was 2003. It's the first time that I saw someone die. And it fortunately, the mentors I had were very good in terms of saying, hey, two things you got to learn. One, you got to learn that you're going to lose far more often than you win. And two, you're not winning or losing anything, you're helping. So I've had docs tell me, you'll never save a life and you'll never cause anyone to die unless you actually really fuck it up. But he's like, aside from being negligent and retarded, they have said to me, you know, you're here to help. But at the end of the day, you are not a savior. You're not even really a healer. You're a helper. And that frame is a good one to come at, as I've seen thousands of people die now. Because I do ICU, which is trauma and all this other thing. I also do palliative care and hospice. So I see patients on both ends of the spectrum. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago and has been reinforced recently is they don't want a healer. They want authentic communication and for you to do everything you can and to let them know one way or the other. Authenticity is currency no matter what you do for a living. They would rather me say, I'm sorry, as far as we can tell, there's nothing more we can do. Here are your options now that we've gone out of curing to comfort. And really sorry, we can't fix grandma. We can't. I'm sorry. But let's talk about what happens next. Versus we're just going to keep going not because I think I can fix grandma, because I don't want to have the conversation with you telling you I can't. And that only harms grandma and the family. It doesn't help or harm you. It's just you running away from a conversation that has nothing to do with you.
That's the compromise.
That's the compromise.
Everybody wins in that
compromise.
And yet nobody wins.
And certainty in knowing when to say, I'm sorry, we can't fix her, is not bad. It's actually a gift to be able to convey that certainty. Or to say, hey, I can't fix her. Let's get 9 other people to see her first. And then once we've exhausted all of our resources on trying to figure this out, then let's have a different conversation.
I mean, the conversation is, the truth is in that place that this is as far as modern medicine can go. Yeah. The remaining of the path, it's in the hand of God.
Yeah.
And that always overwrites the most advanced and modern medicine.
And if you have certainty, you can actually realize that other people, so for instance, 95-year-old grandmother. This happened a couple weeks ago. Family wanted her on dialysis. They wanted all of these other things done, and she has been demented for 5 years. It wouldn't be doing anything for her. We'd be doing things to her. What I recognized was the family loves her, but what they want to do is serving them, not her. So I'm able to say to them, this sucks, but are you being selfish or do you really love grandma? And just to kind of reframe it, but you can't do that conversation if you're not certain, because you come off as a dick. But if you're certain, you're able to say, hey, grandma's 95. She won. In terms of the game of life, she won. She's a fucking winner. What do you hope to achieve from this? And is it really about her or is it about you? And if you are certain, and I've already had a relationship with these patients over a week or so, they will realize you're not indicting them, you're helping them. As opposed to, you're fucking hurting your grandmother, what the fuck's wrong with you? Well, okay. That sometimes works if sometimes you have to talk to people like that. But really, if you are certain and you're able to guide them and help them, you're healing them when you can't heal grandma. And in a way, you're healing grandma because I can do tons of shit to you. I don't want to do that. I want to do things for you. The minute I can stop, I can't do anything more for you. It's a different conversation with a different energy and a different power. Without Warrior Week and certainty, I would not be able to do this to the level that I do it now. I thought I was good before. I'm a fucking different level now.
Beautiful. And so, Dr. Ferda, as we come to the end of our conversation here inside of the Warrior Week Parables from the Pit, if you would have to kind of like send a message out to one man that is listening right now, and that you would just, go in his heart and just directly talk to in his heart, just one man, right?
Okay.
What would that message be?
Message would be, I know you're hurting. I know you're alone. I know you don't feel worthy of anything, but realize and recognize that one, you are, and two, you're not alone in those feelings. Most people feel that way. You're not special, and reach out. If you tell somebody that you're close with how you actually feel, they're going to be relieved because one, they feel the same way, and two, you two will be able to get closer. And
beautiful. And there you have it. Gentlemen, I want to thank Dr. Feder for being our guest this week on the first remote Parables from the Pit Warrior Week podcast. We'll have many of these in the schedule, and hopefully get to have these in person as soon as that is enabled. So what I want from you is the following, is that, hey man, this podcast was never meant to be the most popular fucking podcast. I keep saying that. Maybe it'll become one day very popular. But the intent of this podcast is the following. If you can package this in a way that you felt inside of your heart, something has shifted and something has resonated with you. That resonance is true, and there is a man in your life that could benefit from the same resonance. At least your hope is that. Then simply take the link of this podcast, wherever you're listening to it, either on iTunes, YouTube, or on warriorweeknow.com. Take the link, forward it to that man, and ask him to listen. No request, nothing else. They'll know what to do. So, gentlemen, until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Dr. Feder, thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you, Coach.